Hey, everybody. It is Wednesday morning, 11 o'clock Central Time, and I am Dr. John Shirk, and that means this is Brown Bag Lunch, where I just give you little nuggets every week to improve your life as an air conditioning technician or as someone who's trying to make it happen for an air conditioning technician. What I want to talk about today is the relationship between a technician and whoever is supervising that technician. And I'm going to speak to it kind of from the tech's perspective, but there's a good lesson here for both sides of the equation. The recent study that I read said that when Americans are asked what are the things in life, just generally, not just at work, but just in life, create the most unhappiness for you, the number one answer collectively from that study was conversations with my boss. Now, let's let that sink in for a minute. How significant is it from both sides of the equation? And this is why I'm speaking, especially to technicians, because technicians often feel like, well, they're the boss, so what can I do about it? Well, there's stuff you can do, right? So the first thing I want to do here is help you understand the types of relationships between technicians and whether it's a service manager or depending or supervisor, maybe it's the direct owner of the company if it's a smaller company, depending on your situation. There's four forms that relationship can take. One of these four it will take. All right. And this is based on some great anthropological work by a guy named Alan Fisk, who is he's taught at UCLA for like 9,000 years and is a genius. And it's just applying his model to this situation, but it applies well. So there's four types. One is authority absent. And this is where the manager and the technician interact as if no one has any authority. It's kind of like no one's in charge. We're all in this together. No one's really giving anybody direction. It's it's almost like you're in a book club together, except you're going out there to do the work. Okay. Again, is this good? Is this bad? It, all four of these could be good or bad by themselves, but that's the first kind where there's no authority really being expressed in the relationship. The second kind is authority present. And this is where the manager has authority and uses their authority. And the issue of whether this is a good news or bad news relationship is whether the manager intentionally uses their authority to benefit the technician. In other words, thank God he's my boss because he does this for me with what he is in charge of. Or does it feel like this job would be so much easier if he just vanished? Okay. So that's the authority present relationship. By the way, in the research on this, these four types of relationships exist all over the place. There's also four types of marriages. There's four types that we could go down the same list. So realize that across the planet, across all the cultures in which this was studied, these exist in every culture. The relationship in which one person has authority, but they use it to benefit the person under that authority, that person has the highest happiness scores of anybody. Right. So we so often think authority is a bad thing because we don't like to be told what to do sometimes. But more realistically, we're just really bad at using it. And that's why that unhappiness comes from talking to my boss. That's where that comes from. Okay. So that's the second one. Authority absent, authority present. The third one is what I call rules as rules. And this is where a kind of structure is created, a set of rules is created, and the relationship works to the degree that both sides play according to those rules. Okay. So if there's a rule that we all show up at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? And this relieves the manager from the burden of saying, where were you? Because the rule is there. And so if it's like the rules are in charge. Now, this is great for creating fairness and equity. The problem is who makes the call in a unique situation? Sometimes the rules are not the right thing to do, right? But then that's the third type. And the fourth type is what's called a market rate relationship. And this is compensation focused. The relationship itself is driven by whether the tech is receiving what he or she deems to be proper compensation. If so, this relationship is working. There's an exchange of pay and work, and everything's good. On the other hand, if um, if that is a perceived not to be happening, if it's a market rate relationship and compensation is off, the relationship is off. Okay. So I would start as a technician, think through the relationship you have with someone who directly supervises you. And which one of these do you really experience most of the time? Is it authority absent? In other words, it's like we're all in a book club together. Is it authority present, meaning someone is in charge, but are they using that authority to benefit you? Is it a rules is rules relationship where there's a lot of policy, a lot of processes, a lot of written expectations? Um, or is it a market rate relationship where it's like this whole thing is happening because you're paying me and you're paying me what I expect you to pay me. And the day that that stops not being the case, this relationship is over. Okay. So, like I said earlier, it's kind of a funny thing, but these four types of relationships exist in every relationship category on the planet. There's also four types of marriages. There's an authority absent marriage where no one's in charge. There's an authority present relationship where one or the other is in charge. There's a rules as rules kind of marriage, right? And then there's a market rate marriage where, somebody's got to come in with deep pockets or this marriage relationship doesn't work, right? So this isn't just a technician uh type of a situation, but this is where you begin. So if you understand the dynamic of the relationship, that puts you in a better position to go negotiate for what you need. In other words, if you have a boss who uses their authority, it's very simple to go to them and say, you're in charge here and I'm not. I need to know it when the end of the day is. Can we talk about the practice of you just keep catching calls and I'll let you know when we're done? This is a real problem for me. And if he says, nope, that's what the job is. If you don't like it, get out. Okay. Well, then you know what your choices are, right? But if you're in a authority absent kind of relationship, that's a different conversation because it's a little more peer to peer, right? There's a feeling that we're all in this together. If it's an authority present relationship, then you need to work through the authority of that the boss or supervisor in order to negotiate for what you need or want in your job situation. If you're a commercial technician and you want a megger, um, which if you're watching this, you're not familiar. It's a tool that it assesses the power going through just through the air conditioning unit. And people who are in industrial settings often benefit from one of these because you can tell if wrong power is moving through the unit before the compressor goes down. So let's say you want a megger, right? If you have someone who is in authority, it's their decision to buy a megger for you. So that's what you do is you go and ask them if they would make a decision to do this. If they don't use their authority, then that's a different kind of negotiation. You have to talk to them differently. If it's a rules as rules relationship and you need something, what do you need? You need another rule. So can we set a policy that and negotiate it that way, right? And if it's a market rate relationship, these are much more tangible. What's the dollar figure I think I should be making? And if you're a technician and listening to this, I would encourage you to reach out to me. I have wage data for technicians in every labor market in the United States. So I can tell you what people are making in your market. And I can tell you there's big variances from one market to another in terms of what guys are making. So if you need to know that, just reach out. And probably 2023, I'm going to find a way to systematically get this to you guys. But so then you can have that conversation. And this is one of the more if there's a conversation that I see technicians get wrong, it's the one about compensation. The Most of the time, if you want to have a conversation about compensation, be more strategic, right? Make sure you're demonstrating clearly that your value is high and you're getting paid for something you're already doing, as opposed to a fairness conversation where you heard about some guy who's making $50 an hour at XYZ. And so I want $50 an hour. you will always lose that one. Always. Now, if you create value and then you ask for a raise, you've got a much better chance to get there. Okay. All right. So those are the four types of manager relationships. And what my hope is that by just, you know, analyzing the relationship you have with the person who is over you in the org chart, even if they don't act like they're over you, it will give you a better strategy for negotiating with them to get what you want. All right. So listen, it's December. I hope y'all are having a very great Christmas season, holiday season, and we will see you next week.